So before we get into your life and what's made you who you are, the last 3 years with COVID was quite a thing. It worked on all of us in its own way. How did you
Yeah.
survive it? And how has it changed the way that you do things now?
COVID was, yeah, it was interesting. I actually went home to stay with my parents because I live by myself otherwise. And I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally. So I went back there. It was actually really nice. Like, I had a year with them, was able to go back to spend time with them. I was fed, I didn't have to worry about too many things. So it wasn't too bad for me. I know I consider myself to be an ambivert leaning on the extrovert scale. But I'm also fine, like if I'm not like if I had them around me, so it was okay. But then yeah, I wasn't like it wasn't uncomfortable for me to go back in the world. I was ready. Like when things were opening up, it's like I'm ready. I had a lot of shifts that happened during COVID. I wouldn't necessarily say that they're because of COVID, but my life did change pretty drastically. I moved to the West Coast and started a new job, started a new career. All these things happened. So
Yeah. So let's get into what you do. I'm going to hypothetically put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day. One of the
okay,
kids looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
yeah.
answer them?
So I am an authenticity coach and guide, but to make it a little bit easier for, the third graders, I would say I'm a life coach and I help people get clear on who they are and build the confidence to moving towards those so that they can be joyful and excited about their lives and all aspects of their lives.
So I would imagine your business had a pretty big uptick with COVID. Everybody did self introspection and tried to figure their lives out. I would imagine that helped you.
To be honest, I actually started my business slightly post COVID. It was like nearing the more like 2021, 2022. But yes, things have definitely been moving up. Everyone's introspecting, everybody's looking inwards, everybody's looking for either therapy or coaching, ways to move their life forward. I was doing my own introspection, actually, a lot of it during COVID times. And that was what was able to help me propel and move forward in starting this.
So let's go to when you were in the third grade or you were young. What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was young, I actually wanted to be a doctor. So I always knew when I growing up that I wanted to help people in some way. And I didn't exactly know how. Coming from a South Asian background, I'm Indian, coming from an immigrant family. Um, I think I was told actually at a very young age that, oh, this is like a path that you could follow. And as a pretty sensitive kid and someone who, wanted to please and like just listen to my parents and follow the expectations that were somewhat set for me. I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. And I didn't really think too much about it until many years later. I kind of just followed the path because I thought that was the path.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your childhood. Tell me about where you were born and raised. And we all get seeds in our younger years. What were the seeds that were put into you that made you want to be at this point where you're giving and helping people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually was born in India. We moved around a little bit, moved to Germany, moved back to India, and then I moved to the US when I was 9. So I was in fourth grade. So being Indian was a very core part of my identity when I moved here. I assume it was because I'd like let this go like at a very formative age, like I left my like home country. So it was a very big part of who I am. But also the big seeds that were planted in me were, oh, it's important to be successful and make good money so you're financially stable. That's how you get your safety in life, and the way to do that is by following a job and like path that will provide that to you. Doctors are very highly valued in, I'll say, Indian society, just because it's seen as like a high status, high achieving, like well paying job. So a lot of us South Asian kids, not everybody but a lot of us, start down that path typically, and many of us follow it at some point in our lives. Like some of us realize, oh no, this is what we don't want to do. Some people obviously still want to do it, but that's why you see so many Indian doctors. It's almost an expectation in some ways, like doctor, lawyer, engineer. Like that's what we're known for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I've always talked about that with um the culture does bring out a lot of very successful people when they immigrate to America. I mean,
Yes, yes.
there's a higher level, there's a higher standard, whether it's owning a business or being in the medical profession. There's just an acumen that's totally different from, I don't know, the American mindset. It really is accelerated.
Yeah, no, it's the mindset that's very different. Like studies are really, really looked upon as like very highly valued in Indian culture, like studying, doing well. And again, it's the status, the financial safety of it is really, really big. And in India, things are very competitive. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's easier here, but there's a little bit more wiggle room. There's more room for creativity. There's more options. You can do things at a different timeline. But when you're coming over from a certain culture, when things are done a certain way, that's of course you're going to bring that over when you come here. And our parents are really all just striving for our best lives, so they're doing it in the way they know how to do it, and that's how they raised us.
Yeah. So who's been kind of a hero or a role model for you in your life?
That's an interesting question. I don't like to put people on pedestals because I think that everyone has flaws, good sides, bad sides, and I try to take strengths from everybody that is around me. I try to be aware and mindful of my own weaknesses. So I know that's not an answer, but I used to say my mom was my hero, and not to say that she isn't still, but I was just able to see her more of as a human as I got older. So my mom is such a wonderful person. She's very warm, loving, giving, and those are qualities that I definitely try to imbibe in my day-to-day life. But I wouldn't necessarily say she or anybody in my life is a hero anymore.
Yeah. So well, let's kind of hone in on something here. If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend a little time with them, who would it be?
Sure. I would say, oh, there's so many interesting people. um I don't know if you've heard of Atul Gawande. he
Uh,
is he's a surgeon, and he's also a writer. He's written some really interesting books. One of my favorites is called The Checklist Manifesto, and it's a comparison of how um, hospital systems could be run better by creating better relationships, by creating checklists and ensuring that people are like, making sure that everybody in the room is well versed of what's going on. It's not just the doctors that are at the top tier. And I say this because my background before I became a coach was in healthcare, and I've aside from being a doctor, I'm not a doctor, but aside from looking into that path, I worked in the healthcare industry for a while, and I read a lot of his books, and I really love them.
Speaking of books, what was the first book you read when you were young that really made you want to read more?
That's a really hard question for me to answer, only because I love to read. So
Yeah.
I've been reading from a very young age. There's pictures of me like at the age of what, 2 years old, just like with comic books open. So if I have to go way, way, way back and from those pictures, I think I was reading Archie, or reading is not the right word, but looking at pictures from like Archie's Digest at a very young age.
Nice. So
Yeah.
you're obviously someone that wants to give and help people, and you
Yeah.
have to have motivation to do that. What's your daily motivation? What drives you to be who you are?
Um, I think what drives me, my motivation is people. I love people, and I want well, it's hard to, I don't want to say I want everyone to be the best they can be because it's a lot of people, but I do want people, if I can usually sense if people are feeling hurt or if they're struggling in their lives, I can sense that. And if they're willing, I would love to help people move past that pain and get to the other side, because I know that there's always another side. Not everyone is fully aware of that. And I want people to know that there is a way for them to shine their light and be as confident and bright in the world as they possibly can be.
So how do you get to the end of a day and say that was a good day?
Yeah. Every day's a little bit different when you're an entrepreneur and when you have your own business. So, I have tasks, like little things. Some days I'm doing actual coaching work, and I'm saying, "Oh, look, this client, like, they had a light bulb moment, or I help them like draw out their goals, and now they're going to move towards them, or maybe they accomplished a goal and they came back and told me that they accomplished something, or maybe I'm doing like admin work, and a good day is me just I booked a new podcast with someone, or I booked a workshop somewhere, to a speaking event somewhere. So quite frankly, every day is a good day, but I know that each step I take is towards that bigger mission. And so that is fulfilling for me.
So speaking of the light bulbs and the clients, what's been the best success story? Something you really resonates with you with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a client not too long ago. She was struggling because she was living with her family, and the relationship dynamic was a little bit tough. She didn't have a job yet. She was feeling very underconfident about herself in general. I could tell that was the reason for her lack of just fulfillment all around. So we walked through, why she was unhappy with her family dynamic, what was happening in her work life. I helped her lay out plans over a few weeks. We came up with things. She started applying to jobs a little bit more rigorously, defined exactly what she wanted to do. She was able to find a job. And the next step was like me advising her whether, or not advising her, but helping her understand whether moving out of her home with her family was the right thing or not for her to do. And after a few weeks, she was able to do that as well. So that right now is a big success story because she's now living her own life for herself. And I'm, of course, very proud of her. And I think that's a very, very good way to get to know yourself, especially if you're in your like early 20s, late teens, and you haven't had the chance to explore that yet.
So that story is a real testament to like getting through things and getting wise, finding wisdom in life. If you were to have a dream tonight, run into a much younger version of yourself, you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point. What would you tell that young version?
I would tell that young version to to break the rules a little more. I was a little bit of a rule follower. And sometimes it's seen as a good thing. I didn't do it because I was trying to be a goody two shoes. I was doing it because I literally thought I had to follow the rules. It's like I was like, there's no other option. Why would you break the rules? But I've learned over time that people have set the rules. Like we have set the rules for each other. I'm not saying, you should go out and violate like traffic rules, like don't speed,
Right.
don't do it's like endangering yourself or anybody else. But it's okay to push the boundaries a little bit. It's okay to ask more questions. It's okay to say like, why are things the way they are? Can I do things differently? What are different perspectives of like one situation that would lead to different outcomes for me?
So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, contacts, but you are in control. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, that's a fun question because I ask my clients that all the time, actually. But I think so. There's two ways for me to answer this. I think first and foremost, I'm a human, but before that, I'm just here and I'm an embodiment of love. And I know that might sound a little woo-woo to some people, but I genuinely believe that. And then as we move through the world, we start going down these paths and putting ourselves in boxes and putting down like giving ourselves identities. So post that, I'm like a daughter, a sister, a dog mom, and I'm someone that I hope I like to think of myself as someone who's kind and can help people and really live as authentically as possible, so I can help other people live authentically and confidently in their own lives too.
The one thing about the world opening up now and getting through this pandemic is that, it's kind of given people an idea of what they want to do with their lives and where they want to go. If we spoke in 5 years from now, what are you looking forward to seeing happen? What's kind of on your timeline
You say for the world or for myself?
for yourself and even the world? I mean, hopefully we're entering a new enlightened era. Maybe this is a dual question here.
Yeah, yeah. For myself, my hope is to continue doing the work that I'm doing, spreading the message that we we can live in a way that's easier than we have been living. Financial success is definitely important just because it's a part of the society that we're a part of. But I hope to be able to inspire more of like creativity in people's lives, to help build that confidence. Again, I think that's a big piece of why so many people nowadays that like anxiety, depression, all of those things that we are always hearing about. I think part of the reason is because we aren't letting ourselves be creative in the way we want to be. I don't mean just like painting, drawing, the way most of us are taught to be creative, but whatever it is, what is your unique voice wanting to do in the world? I want to help people find that, whether it's through my coaching or through the speaking events that I do, and any other kind of work I do, meditations, etc. And for the world, I mean, I think we're already, to be honest, as a like a society moving in the right direction. I think people are realizing like we cannot live the way we've been living for so long. People are becoming more self-aware. People are becoming better communicators, which I think is really important. People are taking the time to understand their feelings. So I just hope we continue down that trajectory, and so that we can all start to become more healed as people in general.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great answer. So if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about you, anything pertaining to your world, where can they go?
So very easy to find me. I'm at ruhinamehra.com. That's my website, RuhinaMehra.com. I'm also on Instagram at Ruhina Mehra Coaching. I am not on TikTok yet. I'm working up the courage to get there because I'm not Gen Z, and it's taken me some time, but I will be there soon, I think.
Excellent. Ruhina, this has been wonderful. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Yes, thank you. Likewise.